You're right. I was just saying. Good evening. Good evening, everyone. Thank you all for coming out tonight. And for those of you who are online, glad to have you as well. This is, I think it's 34th year of the Highland Lake Association. And so pleased to have everybody here. We've got a lot of interesting things to cover tonight. And I hope that by the time we're done, you're excited about some of the things you've seen and heard. We got some fun stuff going on. So the first thing we've got to do is get the slide clicker to go. We have it. We don't. Bear with me. So I think I can bring up, we're bringing up the deck now. I'll go to the next one. The agenda that we've got tonight is we'll start off with Heather Hunt from the Soil and Water Conservation District. And she's, for most of you, I think it's probably the best kept secret in the state. And I think you'll learn a lot about what they do and how they do it and how helpful they've been to us. Tom VerLee is going to run through some of the requirements that we have, re-election of board members and some other activities. Lauren Bath will come up and talk about some fun events that we've got planned for the summer. And I'll go through a lot of things that have happened since last year's meeting. And then we're going to end up with our Name the Loon Chick contest. So you'll all be a part of it. We'll ask you to raise your hands over the selections that we have, and those online will be able to click on their preference. So I think it'll be fun. First thing that we're going to do is we're going to have Heather Hunt come up, and I just want to tell you that I've known Heather for about six years now, and she's been just a consummate professional from the first day I met her. She's I'm on a number of different committees besides the HLA, and she's on some of the same ones. And she always gets her homework done. She's very thorough, very helpful, terrific to work with. And so what I'd like to do is introduce Heather, not only as a colleague and worried about lakes and streams and et cetera, but also as a friend. You know, she's someone if you got a problem and you think Heather can help, she's there. So, Heather.
Okay, so yeah, my name's Heather Hunt. I'm a senior project manager at Cumberland County Soil Water Conservation District. I've been with the district for quite a while. I think it's 16, 17 years now. It's been a bit. And I have been working with Highland for part of that. There were other staff in my office too that have worked with Highland, but I've been working back with Highland Lake Association most recently. And Dennis asked if I'd come and kind of give a little bit about opportunities that we have and what we're doing for the lake, but also just a little background about the district, because he felt that, you know, it would be a good time for a refresher for people to know. So we're located in South Windham. If any of you are familiar with South Windham, where Blue Seal is, we're next door in the old Elsie Andrew building. We just purchased that building, and we're a fairly small office. We're overseen by a board of both elected and appointed supervisors that kind of give the guidance for the work that we do. And we have on staff, our staff varies depending on the needs of our community, but currently we have a full-time engineer, education outreach, marketing. We have an educator in the classroom he has 18 years of being a teacher out west. He's amazing. And a few others with GIS experience, technical services and whatnot. So in Maine, there are 16 districts throughout the state. They don't completely coincide with all 16 counties, but Cumberland County Soil Water is the largest district for a number of reasons, but a lot of it comes down to funding. And yes, Cumberland has had some opportunities to expand based on growth, but there are other reasonings there. But the unique position of districts is that we are really set up and being able to cater to the local needs. So our needs are very much different than Aroostook County and whatnot, but we, our missions are the same: soil water protection. How we do that and what the needs are of our local community varies. So it makes us in a very unique and beneficial setup. So basically how we were formed, well, this came back from the Dust Bowl in the 1940s, when government was like, the Dust Bowl came, there was drought conditions, poor farming practices, and it just devastated the farming land out there. Loss of crops, loss of livelihoods. It was a big ordeal. So government said something needs to be done to put resources on the ground to help protect our soils. And they formed a soil conservation service that would help to give farmers direct assistance. However, people were kind of leery of trusting big government. So they realized shortly after that they needed to do a little bit more and have a separate entity, and that's where the conservation districts came into play. We are non-regulatory, non-biased. We are here to bring federal resources to the local entities. And even though things have changed over time with land uses and whatnot, our purpose, our mission is still the same. We still need to protect soil. Water was added into the equation, of course, but it's still something that we need to do, even with the land use changing as it's going through. So it's always a need, and we are here as a special entity to help with that situation. So a lot of people get us confused, and I don't blame them. It's a long name. Soil Water, they think I'm county, they think I'm government employee. I'm not. I'm not a nonprofit. We are not for profit. All of our funding goes back into our programs. But I am here to serve the community and be that non-biased place for people to come. And that's been very helpful in the work that we do, especially with the lakes. There's a lot of people who might have a problem out there. They don't want to make it necessarily known to any regulators, but they want to do the right thing. And we can come in and kind of help work on brainstorming without just saying, oh, this is a violation and you need this, no, we're here to help. We're coming in to find the best solution forward. Our enabling legislation from the state, I highlight a few things, not that any of you will read all this, but it is varied. So it's not just through agriculture. We also can do stuff with preserving natural resources and helping to protect against floods, protecting the tax base, protecting public lands, and preserving wildlife. So we're a bit diverse in our capabilities. What we do, this is always tricky, always trying to explain what we do because it varies so much. We serve the needs of our community. And so as long as it's soil water resource protection, we will vary our services based on the needs to achieve those results. But currently, some of the projects we've been working on, we do like stormwater inspections. We do a lot of work in the Main Mall, Long Creek area. Recently, we sought a grant to do soil lead testing for the greater Portland and all of Cumberland County, just an awareness program there, for gardening. We do surveys and assessments. This one picture here is kind of showing a sediment bloom. Don't worry, that's not Highland Lake. That was taken in another stream going into another lake in the state, but that's not Highland Lake. We do technical assistance, that one-on-one. I was just talking earlier, one of the things we offer is a 1-hour consultation. So if someone wants to know what they should be doing about their property, they can call us or they can go to our website and fill out a form. And we ask for you to share some photos. And you can either come, then we'll schedule time for you to either come into the office, or we can give you a call and talk about your situation and what's needed. So we might not always be the person, the expertise that you need, but we are more than happy to try to find where you should go next if we aren't. So feel free to give us a call. We'll see how we can help best and where we can go. So looking for advice, there's no fee for that. We do small fees depending on your need, like if you absolutely have to have us come out to your site, or if you need a plan written up or something more elaborate. But we talk about what those might be. So we do a variety of things. We help with construction. We help with, our engineer helps to look at development reviews. He also helps, he's a third-party inspector. He helps work with contractors while they're doing construction and inspecting what the work after. There's one of these pictures up in the corner is of a rain garden. He does engineering designs. He does design work for the small scale, for the lakes and the private roads, which has been amazing. Usually our engineers are really elaborate and complex designs, and he can bring it right down to the basics too for our smaller scales. Let's see. Oh, I think it's trying to go forward. The school, the education, community education and outreach, we have in-school programs. We try to do place-based education. We try to get students out into the resource. Trout release is one of the huge ones they love. They love going out. Schools will actually raise their own little trout, and they'll actually learn about all of that and take them out into the water. But we also learn about the watershed and the water cycles and all that fun things. But community education is huge. We have a huge program, largely because we assist Greater Portland municipalities that have to meet stormwater regulations. So there's certain things that they have to do to meet that. And we work with a group of 14 municipalities to bring education programs. It's just an economy of scale. But those programs, both Falmouth and Windham, are in those programs. They offer residents free opportunities to participate. So there's various workshops, from yardscaping, how to have a yard with less lawn or a yard with less fertilizer, pesticide use, things that are more water friendly, soil friendly. Here in these pictures, we're doing trainings for contractors on erosion sediment control. We work with the state, we work with partners, we do events, we do stormwater conferences. We do marketing. And I think a lot of you have seen the Living Lake Living pamphlet. This was made by Kat in our office. She has a marketing background. And she's amazing as well. And she does a lot of stuff for social media, letting people know of the different things they should be thinking about, helping with website design, all that fun stuff. So we do have an awful lot going on that I don't think a lot of people realize. We also help with community engagement and partnerships. So we work some of these lakes. These are buffer plantings. These are different lake association. Panther Pond is in the center here, and community agriculture is another one. We have a number of programs that help to do like food forests and edible forests, community agriculture. Right now, we're working with South Portland on a 100 Resilient Yards program, which is a really neat program to help residents learn how to use their property most effectively, putting in rain gardens, putting in raised beds, and working with communities and other organizations and sponsorships to give them materials to do that. It's a really neat pilot project happening right now. So how we're funded, this kind of got a little squished up in translation. This is what might be a little surprising for most people is most of our funding comes from contracts, grants, and other projects that we're working on. We are only provided with $25,000 from the state of Maine, which they just graciously jumped to $32,500 for this next fiscal year. And we apply and typically get about $18,000 from the county. So we're operating, that's our base funding. That's all that we have, which isn't a full-time employee, but we use that to work on these other, bring in these other projects and these other funding sources. So when I say, when people are like, well, I thought you were the county and I thought we could get your services for free, our taxpayer dollars are going, it's like, well, yes, and we want to help you with a good mission, but I just have to find a way that I can afford it, that we can make, that we can make it work, so we can get employees out there to do that stuff. So yeah, that's something. Then in our office, we are definitely talking about how do we get more of that base funding so that we can serve better. But I think the current structure, we've been very efficient and effective at using those dollars to the best of their ability. Like I keep track of my time every 15 minutes and people are like astounded by that. And that's because, well, we've got to be fair in how we charge our time, and we are very efficient at that. History with Highland Lake. So a lot of this you already know, but the district has been involved with Highland Lake pretty much from the beginning. There was Betty McGinnis, she was McFarley, now McGinnis, and she helped way back when in the 90s when it was first noticed that there was an issue with your lake, to try to help and figure out what was going on. I believe we were assisting with the watershed survey in 97, the original one. There were some plans put in place as to what should be done. And from 1999 to 2009, the district worked with the Lake Association to apply for and implement these conservation projects. We call these 319 grants because they're funded by Section 319 Clean Water Act. And we did a bunch of stuff, and from all of that work, the lake was starting to show a trend that I believe was stabilizing from that. So the state took it off the impaired list. It wasn't getting better, but it wasn't getting worse. And so that was a great hurrah. It was perfect. In doing those grants, those 319 grants, there were over 300 properties that were addressed. There were 43 road sites. Hopefully these are somewhat accurate. I even know the names of these. One's Vista, it was a stabilization project. So if you're interested in knowing the specific names, I have those too. 51 residential properties. And at one point there was a Highland Lake Youth Conservation Corps that the district helped the Lake Association run and assist with. And that was pretty successful. That helped to get high schoolers involved in their communities, and they would work for the summer and they would actually do the labor of installing practices that helped to protect the lake. But 200 sites from that.
Is the Youth Conservation Corps gone now?
It is. So the Youth Conservation Corps was a great program, but it was very intensive to run and costly to run because you had to train them, everyone, every year. And you also had to insure them. Like there was all these other costs that are associated with hiring youth, and then what they can do and not do, and you have to have a technical leader. So it was hard to sustain.
Mm-hmm.
It would work well if there was a big sponsor that could help with that. It's still something that we revisit. I know other places in the state have YCCs, And Thompson Lake is one of the ones, they have their own YCC, but they're a huge lake. So they have a means, you know, to try to make that happen with sites and stuff. It's something that we revisit and try to see, is that a solution? Is that feasible at any time? But through that process too, those grants, we also put on a number of outreach education workshops. So cruise the buffer workshops, buffer plantings, road workshops. For those of you who know Wendy Garland, that is a picture of a very young Wendy. I believe that's when she worked at the district. She was at the district for DP. And we even did like septic socials, if some of you might remember that. Septic socials where you come together in someone's, you know, house and you talk about how do your septics work and how do you maintain it. And yeah, it was a pretty neat little setup. We still have the ability to do that. People are interested. And then we did a community forum back in 2009. And John, I think there's a picture of you there in the stripes. I don't know where John McKinnon is, but I think he's in there. I don't know if there's any others I recognize way back then. So we did a lot of great things. EPA, who has the Clean Water Act funding that gives it to the state to distribute, was very excited about all the work that was done in 2010, that the lake came off the list. But then, as many of you know, so it was a great, you know, a great celebration. And then it was kind of like, yay, we did it, we're good. And then there was no funding to keep things going. And you've got potential development pressures that came in. You had these picocyanobacteria blooms. So then the Lake Association came back to the town, to the districts, and said, whoa, we've got some issues still. You know, things are getting worse. What's happening? And that's where the Highland Lake Leadership Team was formed. And that's pretty unique for the state. It's the two towns, Falmouth, Windham, and the Lake Association, that have formed to oversee lake water quality improvement. And this is a little bit about their charge. I know there's a link on the website that kind of talks about it more, but it's basically to follow your management plan. And at the time, your management plan was old. So we said, let's update that plan. Let's find out what's really needed here. Let's think outside of the box a little bit more. And I'm just waiting for it to flip. Maybe I can actually do it that way. Okay. So then we did a survey, as many of you know. Maybe I'm just giving a highlight of what you already might be aware of. In 2018, there was a new survey done by the Lake Association, and I believe it was over 100 sites that were identified in that survey. And then we went to the state and got some funding, 604 Clean Water Act 604B funds, to pull together a management plan. So we are now operating off of a 2020, 2020, 2030, 10-year watershed management plan. So this leadership team is now in charge of following the plan, and it has a set of action items that we go through, and some of them are to address known pollutants, some of them are to look into preventing future pollutants, some of them are to just keep monitoring and figuring out new solutions. And this is what, you know, Dennis will talk about ongoing, what we have different committees that look at different aspects of it. I actually help with addressing the known pollutants and overseeing like the watershed management plan. Are we on task? How are we doing? Where are things at? I'm just trying to change the page. Oh, maybe the batteries. Okay. So based on that plan, we have steps of what we want to accomplish and what we wanted to do. And one of those was to go back and apply for more of these 319 grants through the state, which we did and were awarded, and to address the highest impact sites. The Lake Association did a fantastic job in between of identifying, taking all the largest impact sites and trying to then find ways to get them fixed. reaching out to people, talking to people. How can you fix your road? Your road was identified, your property. What do you need? Do you need do you need technical assistance? Do you need financial assistance? All those things. And the town of Wyndham was a great resource. They do watershed protection grant funds every year, which has helped a lot of private roads get fixed. But then these are for the bigger sites. So we did Overlook Road in Wyndham. This was one that we had done in a prior grant, but we didn't do it we did it with the funds that were available then. And we said, nope, we want to go back in and we want to fix it to a larger extent with better drainage, better base to it and whatnot, engineered designs. And so that work was done 2021. These are just some of the pictures of before and after. And I will give you, you'll have this presentation so you can look at it in more detail rather than up on a big screen at your content. We also had some funding to do some drainage issues on Percy Hawks Road. They had some erosion gullies that were going down, and we came out and we were able to get some grant funds. Typically our grants cover half the cost. For Overlook, the cost was $65,000 to do the repaving, and the grant was able to cover more than half financially. They covered a little over 39,000, and the Lake Association helped to obtain match funding from the town of Wyndham. And then the Road Association put in matched what the Lake Association got from the town of Wyndham. So for them to do that work. So, but typically they're 50-50 for funding. We just have to make it work. I think the big thing with our water quality sites is that, I'll just go back here for a second, is that we need to know, the Lake Association needs to know if you have an issue. And if you have something that needs to be addressed, and then we can try to see and try to find what might be the best solution for it, and if we can get funding to help or not. We might not be able to help pay the whole thing, but maybe we can find grant funds for part of it. So our Watershed Management Committee with HLLT recently tried to see if we have additional funds to pull together another 319 grant proposal. We met a number of times to discuss it. We had a couple of sites that were definitely on the radar, but they weren't of high enough impact. The one on Overlook Road, when we did some soil loss analysis, it was like over 54 tons of sediment per year going into the lake. And so that was a pretty significant site. So the state was, willing to help give a grant for that project, but most sites aren't to that extreme. So in that case, I need more of them. I need a lot of sites that can show a big impact to make a strong grant proposal, if that makes sense. But long story short, the key is there's resources out to help, whether it's not information or potential funding. We can give you guidance. We can try to seek funding where possible, when possible. Don't be afraid to reach out. There's different avenues. There's a Lake Association if you're comfortable reaching to them. There's also the Conservation District, and there's also the towns themselves. So it's whatever avenue you're most interested with, which I think is very beneficial, because some people are more comfortable talking to certain organizations. And last, I was just going to kind of give an overview. I am not on it, but Dennis is. We have an education and outreach committee through HLLT who has helped to put together a plan of how do we get the community more engaged. They pulled together this guide to lake friendly living. So we have that copy for Highland Lake. They also pulled together a private road calculation model for you to estimate how much material you need. I also have other resources from our website on the district. There's a link there, different fact sheets of different practices you can do. So you can go online and it'll tell you how you can install a rubber razor water diverter. How do you make one of those? How do you install a roof drip line trench? Things like that. So plenty of different resources, plenty of things available. Are there any questions? A lot of information. Yes.
Recently, the EPA nationally sort of relieved developers of some wetland protections. And I'm just wondering if you're familiar with that, with the effects inside of the.
I'm vaguely familiar. It doesn't pertain. Oh, okay, so if I'm correct, you were saying recently EPA kind of reduced the regulations for wetlands in southern, and how does that impact southern Maine? I'm not directly involved with some of those wetland projects. I would assume that they would impact what happens when development occurs within wetland areas. Sometimes there could be an allowable compensation fund so that you have to, do work elsewise. I'm not the key expert of answering that. I haven't seen the specifics of that thus far, but I can definitely talk on the smaller scale of your lake and what I see with the hydrology happening, the different things, loss of wetlands, water having no place to go as it's trying to get to the lake and stuff like that. There's a lot of things there.
I just wanted to say too that Heather is pretty modest, and she says we apply for grants, and she not only takes care of Highland Lake, but she's also served for other lakes around. I know you've gotten grants at Forest Lake and a number of streams in the town of Wyndham. And I think 2 years ago when we got our 319 grant, I think you were 5 for 5. I mean, she applied for 5 and got money for all 5. So she's the go-to person if we need grants. She's been terrific.
Yes, if I can get you funding, I will, but it's, building a case and making it good enough, but at least there's resources at least to give you information for sure. So, and I don't know if there's.
I should have said up front, if there's any questions online, if you'd use the question section on your screen, then we'll respond to those as well. But seeing none, thank you very much,
All right,
Heather.
great.
Thank you. Next up will be Tom VerLee.
Thank you, Dennis. The clicker is here. My name is Tom VerLee. I'm one of the members of the Highland Lake Board, and we do have a couple of administrative functions to do today. One is, and this clicker is in slow motion. Do we have a quorum present? Bylaws say we need 15. I think I see a lot more than that, so I'm going to say yes. We do have a quorum, but we also want to welcome and poll our folks online. So we're going to ask for our online folks to give us the number of folks that are watching on that particular screen, because here when you come through the door, each household is counted, but sometimes more than one person is watching online. So here's our chance. How many are viewing? Please click 1 on the screen, 2, 3, or more than 3. Should get those results real quick. And we look to our technical engineer in the back of the room, Kevin. And so we have 10 out of 19 are watching on one person per screen. And 7 are watching 2 people per screen, 3. And so that's great. That's great attendance. And this may meet some sort of record here as far as attendance in recent years. So we do need to approve the minutes of the annual meeting. Let me back up a couple of clicks here. I forget that this little guy is in slow motion, so we're 2 slides ahead. What if we just did the arrows? Would that work? No?
I don't think so.
No, I guess not.
It's control.
Okay. Okay, so we do need to approve the minutes. Well, the minutes have been published completely in video form, 100% of the meeting for last year. So I have heard no objection. So if you will agree with me, we'll accept a motion here to accept the minutes as published on the web. Second, all in favor? Thank you very much. Now we do have the board of directors, and this is the group of folks that make this organization work. And so I have to be patient here. We have 12 members of the board of directors. The 6 on the left, their term expires this year. The 6 on the right, their term expires next year, the 2-year terms. I'm just going to ask for those folks who, because it's nice to put a face with a name. As I read your name here, would you please stand and we'll hold the thanks here for the end. But Lauren Bath, please. Tim Hawkins. John McKinnon. Paul McDermott. Kevin McInerney. Dennis Brown. Pete Simonson. Diane Wood. Mark Kinner. And I know Kathy Callan can't be here tonight, but let's just give those folks a round of applause. Well, we'll try one more click. Learning to be patient. What do we ask of a board member? We ask them to attend the meeting. Okay, we hold meetings 5-6 times a year, so in person is preferred. But if you have to, we can do it now by Zoom teleconference, and that's really been very helpful, especially in the winter months when folks may be in a warmer climate. Or another way, of course, is to the review agenda and give your proxy to somebody, but that's the least preferred way. We ask you to be active on one committee, standing committee. If you have any interest in joining the board, please let Dennis Brown know. The best way, yeah, we could go through the whole process of I'd like to nominate so and so on. The best way we found over and above is to simply ask questions. What's the board all about? See Dennis and get invited to a board meeting. We're glad to have you there as a guest. You see what goes on and how the board works and how we interact. And then we have some certain expectations, some certain responsibilities. If you agree that you could work with that, then join us and we'll appoint you for a year. And that's exactly the way 2 of the current board members are on the board right now. They've been appointed and now they're up for election to a 2-year term. So I urge, if you have that interest, to do just that. See Dennis and join us for a board meeting, see if it works. And we'd love to have your participation. So we do have an election now. We have the 6 board members. You can see Lauren is from Rockaway, Tim from Rockaway as well. John McKinnon on Haven Road, Paul McDermott on McDermott Way, Kevin McInerney at Pride Farm, and Keith Williams on Lantern Lane. So it is time to vote. This is a build slide, yeah. So you can vote if you're good enough to give us a donation this year. That's sort of the way the bylaws work. Otherwise, you just kind of abstain. So only of those eligible. So all in favor of the accepting a slate of officers as published, would you please raise your hand? And are there any against? It looks unanimous here. And can we do a Zoom poll as well to approve the board of directors? And that looks to be, is that unanimous, Kevin? Thank you. Okay. Sorry about the little clicker here. It's always something, little technical issue that seems to pop up. I appreciate your patience. Okay, so we did that. We do have a couple other needs besides board of directors. There's a lot that's happened in the history of Highland Lake, especially in the last 100 years. The library in Wyndham and Falmouth have been very good about documenting what they know up until about 1900, okay? But after that, we don't know much. So how did the developments get built around Highland Lake? At what period of time did the Cottage Road Beaches Association form, which was 1928? When did Pride Farm form? When did all these little groups form? And what are the events that tied them together and certain events? We needed a historical committee, a group of 2 or 3 people who are interested in reviewing and conversing with old salts like Paul Karen, who know everything about this lake because they lived here forever. But it's really important to document this so that we have this in our heritage. So if you have an interest in doing something like that, please see me or Dennis. We also have another problem. We got several boxes of documents that go back, dam documents and other documents and formation documents and all sorts of stuff that all need to be digitized and scanned. And if you know in your business of some organization, some company, or a library, or some resource that can do that for us, that would be a huge benefit. So a little project, something to pass on. One more thing. I'm not a big Facebook. I'm not a big social media fan. I don't really care what you had for lunch. I don't really care what your reaction to Mission Impossible movie was, but Facebook is a great bulletin board. And that's how you stay up to date with an organization like Highland Lake Association. We can send out all the emails, but that's just a one-way communication. With Facebook, you can respond, you can ask a question, you can get clarification, you can say something your own. Hey, I saw these great loons on the lake this morning. All of that is so important. And this is the way Highland Lake stays connected. So it's simple. Join that group, facebook.com groups Highland Lake, and become a member. There are already 422 of you. So it's a big group, but this is the way we stay connected. And that's what's so important. These annual meetings are great. And the email that comes out every month or two is great. This is the best for a group like this. So that's pretty much it for admin. I have the pleasure of introducing a person who was just elected to the board by you a few minutes ago, Lauren Bath. And Lauren is going to tell us all about some of the social activities that we got coming up. So good luck on using that clicker.
Right, so like Tom said, I'm going to take you guys through some fun events that we've got planned for this year. So my name is Lauren. I've spent basically my whole life up on the lake every summer, so I love it here. So what we've got, let's just bear with me a minute as we give it a second. So our first thing we're going to chat about today for our paddles. So how many of us are paddlers out here? Yeah, I see some hands going up. Perfect. That's what we love to see. So this is going to be our 4th year with our group paddles. So we're gonna look at our Saturday paddles first. We have 5 scheduled for this year. Hopefully the weather is on our side. We would like your input though for timing, right? We all live very hectic, busy lives. So we want to find what's, best for the group. So we're going to be voting for our Saturday morning paddle times, 9, 10, or 11 a.m., as well as some weekday paddles as well. So some Thursday evening paddles, we've got a couple planned for this year. So if we would prefer to see our 5:30 or 6:30 p.m. time. And then on the side, we do see some group action shots taken by Diane in the back from some of our previous paddles. So if we could maybe get a show of hands, we'll start with our Thursday evening paddles. So folks online, if you can submit those preferences now, and then if folks in present time, if you want to raise your hand. So we'll start out with 5:30 p.m. first. So if you have a 5:30 p.m. preference for a Thursday evening paddle, raise your hand high so I can see it. I've got one. I've got 2 people that would like to do a 5:30 p.m. paddle on Thursday. Do we have any input for folks online, Kevin? Okay, and then our Saturday morning paddles.
You want to do a 6 o'clock on the same time on Thursday? It's 5:30 or 6.
5:30 or 6.
That was a choice.
Those were the choices.
We didn't only got one.
We
only got 5:30.
Oh, no, I'm so sorry. 6 p.m. I'm getting ahead of myself. Okay, so I think we clearly would prefer 6 p.m.
Yeah.
All right, so 6 p.m. it is, Thursday, July 27th. Next is our Saturday morning paddle, so 9, 10, or 11 a.m. What would we prefer to see? Let's start with 9 a.m. So show of hands, who wants to wake up nice and early and go paddling while the lake is still very nice and flat? All right. So I've got like 6 on this side. Did you catch how many on that side, Diane? All right, so give or take. How about 10 a.m.? Any mid-morning folks? All right, got like 4 on this side. All right, and then last but not least, 11 a.m. for Saturday morning. I am not seeing any hands. Okay. All right, so 10 a.m. it is for, or no, I'm sorry, 9 a.m. excuse me, it is for Saturday. So we'll do 6 p.m. for the Thursday slots and then the 9 a.m. for Saturday mornings. 9:30. Ooh, oh my goodness, curveball. So as always, I'm going to recommend that we check out our Facebook page because sometimes things happen, weather, wind. So just keep an eye, Highland Lake Facebook page, like Tom promoted in the last slide. All right. Also, we've got some fun activities planned. So we see here our paddle across the lake. Last year, that was a fun little paddle challenge. Was anybody involved in that? Did anybody do that last year?
A lot of kids.
A lot of kids did it. The kayak paddle, I know we had some kings and queens of Highland Lake last year. We also have the swim across the lake. So lots of kiddos get involved in this one. The only requirement is that we have a spotter for the swimmers, our participants. So we've got the swim across the lake. That is next Saturday, July 29th at 9 a.m. We also have a sail around the lake, dates to be determined, as well as some of our Highland Lake hikes. So like I said before, just keep an eye out on our Facebook page. We'll be promoting some events and taking into consideration your feedback and opinions for preferred times and dates as well. Comments, questions, or concerns about any of those fun activities to look forward to? No? Lovely.
Thank you.
All right, thank you so much. Over to Dennis. Thank you.
One of the things that I am so proud to work with this group. I'm on a number of committees and different organizations, different boards. And this group here, this group of board members is the hardest working, most engaged of any other group that I've been with. So, yeah, absolutely. So I'm going to let me fix my screen here. All right, so the agenda that I want to go through tonight is I want to talk about lake level, the alewife count that we had, a number of slides on water quality. I want to talk about the Chase property that's up for sale, I'll cover the financials that we've had over the last year. And then we've got some really good video, photos and video on Loon. So first of all, on lake level, you know, all the rain dances that we did last year because it was so dry, we overdid it. So, but looking at the forecast that we've got for the next couple of weeks, it looks like we're getting back to more normal kinds of weather. The red line that you can see up at the top, that's the lake level that we have this year. So the 0 line is when the lake level is right even with the crest of the dam. And you can see most of the years that we've had, and last year in particular, was the lowest that we've had. And we were down to about 13 inches below the crest of the dam. And I talked with you last year. We did a number of things with the Department of Marine Resources and Inland Fish and Wildlife, the DEP, that we were able to change some of the outflows from the lake. It would have been at least 10 inches lower last year had we not done that. So if you thought it was low now, people up on the north end of the lake, you wouldn't have been able to see the water without binoculars. I mean, you know, it was pretty daunting. So we didn't, at the end of the year, we didn't just leave it at that. One of the things we looked at was, and I'd spoken about this last year, is that the old dam that we had was 22 feet wide. And the new dam, after it washed out in 1996, when it was rebuilt in 2000, is 103 feet wide. So the water rushes out of that 5 times faster than with the old dam. The old dam, if you got a rainstorm, you know, once a week, once every 2 weeks, it could hold the water and it would get metered out. It was always above the crest of the dam. And anyone who's ever gone down to the dam and you looked at the rocks, you could see a bathtub ring on the rocks. And it was last year, it was down a foot below, you know, below the top of that bathtub ring. If you've been down here recently, it's right at the top of it. And so we said, okay, we can't, a great effort. John Wilcox is sitting right here, and I've got all of his records from back around 2000 when the new dam went in. And they worked really hard to try to modify the dam so that the level would come back to where it was before. And tremendous effort, almost made it. And then at the very end, they lost it. So there's been some real improvements in some of the technologies that are used on dams since then. And one of them is an inflatable dam, where you could blow it up. And we were only talking about going up about 3 inches. So it wasn't not nearly as big as what this example is here, but it would bring it up for most of the width of the dam, but still leave an open gap for the water to flow out. And if we got a whole lot of rain, we could deflate it, and we would be able to dump the water really fast. Unfortunately, we don't own the dam. So we were not able to get an approval from the city of Westbrook. They said, you know what? We've talked to our insurance people that we're not comfortable with you drilling holes and mounting this in the dam. So we said, I'm going to skip the winter drawdown. So we said, how about if we buy the dam from you? And the board couldn't do that. We would have to have all of you vote on that. But we wanted to entertain that and see if they would do it. They would get rid of all the liability. They'd get rid of all of the maintenance on it. It's a pain in the neck to them to have to go open up the gates, close the gates, spring and fall, and all of that stuff. So we thought maybe they'd sell it to us for $1. Oftentimes people are happy to get rid of a liability like that. But they talked with some of the state agencies, and the state agencies felt that they didn't have the confidence over the next 50 years that the HLA was going to have the resources to be able to continue to maintain that appropriately where the city would. So they refused to do that. So I know we've talked before, and I've had a number of people reach out to me and say, hey, couldn't we drop the lake in the fall? A lot of lakes do that, and that would minimize some of the shoreline damage that we get. And so we took a look at that, and the picture right in the middle there is actually looking down on a structure on the west side of the dam. And those little slots you can see at the end of that concrete is where you can put what's called a stop log, maybe a 2x8s, and you can put a whole bunch of them down there, and you'd be able to stop the water from going through the sluice gate. Except that the top of the sluice gate is a foot below the surface. So by opening up the sluice gate, the water could drain out till it got down to that level, and then it couldn't go anymore. And that would give us the benefit of dropping the lake a foot. And then in the spring, reverse the project, close the sluice gate, and let the lake start to build back up. I had concerns about the amount, what if we couldn't pull it back up? What if we had a real dry spring? But, and just by going by averages, we get 2 feet of lake water level in March and April. So that's 4 feet of rain, precipitation that comes down within our watershed. So I felt pretty comfortable in that. So we approached City of Westbrook on that. Can we work with you on this? They didn't want to do it. We're not done. We're going to continue to try that, but if there's really real interest in lowering the lake a foot in the fall, we'll continue to work on that. But I think there's some possibilities there. So another thing I wanted to talk about is alewives. We've had quite a variation. If you look to the left of this chart, you can see when they were first being introduced to the lake that we had really small numbers coming back. But then starting in some of the years, you can see zeros. It's not that there were none, it's that we didn't count them. But since, except for 2013, from 2012, we've counted them pretty regularly. And you can see we were up in the 40, 50, even 64,000 of them at one time. And then all of a sudden it crashed in 2020 down to 13.5. And we haven't been that high since. We've had, somewhere in the 5,000 to 10,000 range. And, part of that, the question is why? Well, one of the things that's happened since during this time frame is the fishway at Sakaraka Falls on the Presumpscot River was installed. And it now appears that a lot of the alewives that used to come up into Highland Lake are going further up the Presumpscot rather than swim up skinny little Mill Brook and hope that you can make it. For anyone who's ever walked the stream or gone to the viewing pools, there's a couple of tough places that they got to get by. Goldilocks Falls is one of them. It's called Goldilocks Falls because if there's too much water, they can't make it. If there's not enough water, they can't make it. But if it's just right, they can make it. So anyway, interesting to watch these patterns, and we work real closely with the Department of Marine Resources and Presumpscot Regional Land Trust, who does all of the counting. We're going to talk a couple of minutes here about water quality. And Secchi disc, for those of you who aren't familiar, there's a little diagram on the left of the screen that shows a tester in the boat, and he drops this black and white pattern disc down into the water till they can just, and it's on a tape measure, and you do it till it just goes out of sight, and you measure right at the water surface and record what that measurement was. And obviously the deeper it goes, the clearer the water is, and the shallower, the more cloudy the water is. And this particular chart that you're looking at here is just of the last few years from 2018 to present. One of the things, a number of those years, we've had very little rain. And the more rain you have, a couple of things happen. You typically would wash more phosphorus into the lake, which is going to fertilize all of the zooplankton and everything. And you're washing in materials, whether it be fine soil, clay, or other suspended materials. So you can lose some of the water clarity under those circumstances. But you can see we're not out of line. The red is 2023, and we're a little bit higher than we have been in some of the other years. When we got our blooms, and actually 2018 here, the light blue, is the year after our official blooms. And an official bloom is when the water clarity gets to 2 meters or less. So the higher you are on this chart, the worse the water clarity is. And if you look at the end of July, that light blue line was probably about somewhere around 2.5 meters that you could see into the water and see that disc. I'll be surprised if we get there this year. but some of the patterns would suggest that the 2018, the 2019, when we had a lot of rain in the spring, is similar to what we're seeing this year. So we'll be anxious to see how that plays out here as we go on. But the good news is, I know you can't read this chart, but what's really significant about this one is that this is the water clarity measurements all the way back to 1970. So what we're seeing here is that over time, the water clarity was getting less from the 1970s. We're around just under 7 meters that we could see this black and white disc. But over time, with more phosphorus getting into the lake, with more development and everything, we started to lose some of that. And all the way up to, it flattened out a little bit around 2000, when some other efforts that were discussed earlier, that a lot of work was done around the lake to try to minimize erosion going in, that Heather had talked about. And we slowed down that slope quite a bit. But as she suggested, we kind of said, hey, we got this. And we looked the other way for a little bit. But then in somewhere around 2015, we got real active again at looking at erosion sites. And we started getting grants from the town of Wyndham. The town of Falmouth gave us some money to address some of the roads there. And you can see, frankly, I'm pretty excited about this. You can see the curve is actually starting to go down. And if you draw a line across, it brings us back to about the 1990 levels. So this is you people. This is your caring about your lots. This is your paying attention. So that's a lot of credit to the whole Highland Lake community that we're able to turn this corner, but we can't give up this time. We've got to hang in there with it. So you can't go through, let's see which one, this one's phosphorus. And if you look at this, phosphorus has almost exactly the same curve as the one we were just looking at. It just kept growing and growing over time, peaked, and now we've got that curling down again. The Overlook Road project that Heather had talked about and shown some photographs of, with that, I think she said 54 tons of material was getting washed into the lake every year. That's a whole lot. We had a horse farm up on the Wyndham Falmouth line that a lot of phosphorus was getting into McIntosh Brook from that horse farm. I'd shared before, they had a manure pile right adjacent to a wetland that was 115 feet by 100 feet by 15 feet high. And we had some extremely high phosphorus readings coming down the brook. The horse farm was sold. There's no horses there anymore. That had all been removed. Not riprap, but mulch had put over the whole area. It'll take 100 years for it to all go away, but it's significantly less than what it was before. So on this chart, you can see there's different places. If you look at it online or go to our Facebook page or our website, you can see more detail, but it shows different what was going on at different periods of time. But I mentioned growth, and I had showed this slide last year, but it impresses me every time. This is 1925 to 2020. The red dots on the left, and on both of them, represents the number of houses that were within the lake community. And you can see that there's quite a bit of difference. And the issue comes down to phosphorus is in the ground. It's a natural element. It's in our bodies. We're made up. After calcium, it's the highest element in our bodies. Every living thing needs phosphorus. But when you dig up the ground, when you put in a lawn right down to the water, when you fertilize your lawn, all of those things contribute some phosphorus that's going to run off in a rainstorm, and it's eventually going to get to the lake. If it makes your lawn green, it's going to make the lake green. I mean, it's pretty simple math. So I wanted to spend a second just to talk about this. We have point source, where a major polluter could be, let's say, and we don't have any of those on Highland Lake. And then there's non-point sources. That's like death by 1,000 cuts. And so developments come in, existing houses, gravel roads, asphalt roads, pets, small farms, big boat wakes is an issue, and faulty septic systems. So it's important to maintain your septic system and to understand how it works. But on the graph on the right, I wanted to just put it in perspective. That's pounds on the left. So we get just under 100 pounds from pet waste of phosphorus from pet waste in a year that goes into the lake, is our estimate. Gravel roads contribute a little bit over 100 pounds. Older houses, we have about 1,000 houses within the watershed. And I'm just breaking it down. About 700 of them were likely built before some of the runoff controls were put in place. There's a point system. If anyone's done any major work on your house in the last few years, you have to have buffers. You have to do a number of things in order to satisfy the code officer that you've met the stormwater runoff criteria. But newer houses, there's only, I just used 300, but they have to meet that criteria where the old ones didn't. So they contribute less. In fact, developments, we have the second strictest rules in the state on Highland Lake in terms of how much phosphorus developments can release into the lake. They are way under what, a development that comes in of 50 houses puts out less than any 10 houses on the lake. It's that significant. That's how tight it is. But I wanted to go back to pet waste. This pet waste number is based on my estimate that 75% of the people pick up their pet waste. If it's lower than that, pet waste might be the highest source of phosphorus. And if you look, if I looked in the grocery store, some bags list the phosphorus. And if you look at the ingredients in the dog food, it lists how much phosphorus is in. So we're importing that. And once a dog gets to be full size, it's kind of what goes in goes out. They're not adding more phosphorus. They're just passing it through. So it's a big deal that we need to pay some attention to. This is a noisy slide, but it's really an important one. And we're fortunate enough to have a student, Sharon Mann, who's been working with us over the last 5 years on data collection from the lake. And they were very interested in the bloom and what may have caused it and everything. And after the bloom in 2018, we had grabbed some of the zooplankton samples and very tiny micro bacteria and did some early DNA testing to see what it was. And that's when we figured out that, or thought that what was causing our bloom was a picocyanobacteria. Say, I'm going to ask you to spell that at the end of this meeting. So, but it ends up that through much more refined DNA work, this is state-of-the-art stuff that's going on. The same stuff that they were using to try to figure out COVID and how to deal with it. It's the same level of technology to get at this. They reached the conclusion that it was not picocyanobacteria. We had picocyanobacteria, but they are so small that they weren't blocking the light. There was a very unique green algae called Rexonema it's very rare. We don't know how it got here or what, but Sharon is going to be doing her dissertation on this very problem next summer. And she assured me that she will invite all of us to come witness her dissertation, but she's going to explain how whether the alewife did or did not have an impact on causing that. So I'm really interesting to see, with the reintroduction of alewives, not that alewives did it, but the reintroduction of them and having tens of thousands of them come in, there's a belief that they so impacted the zooplankton population in the lake that they allowed that allowed the green algae to take off without anything controlling it until they stopped feeding, the alewives started feeding on bigger zooplankton. And then the smaller zooplankton started eating the green algae again. So it brought it back under control. So she's been helping us with the testing, and it's been huge. We alternate weeks, so we get a lot of data because of this overall effort. An issue that's come up recently is the Chase property. And it used to be the McDermott campground, for any of you who remember back then. It's the red area highlighted on the southwest corner of the lake. It's 41 acres. It's for sale for $1.6 million. It's approved for 60 units in there. And there's some commercial site that's already approved. The permit ran out in February, but they got it renewed. But there's also a number of commercial sites right along 302 that's still going through the planning board process. There's a number of people who have gotten together for a couple of meetings that are interested in purchasing this. But we need help. So I'm asking if there's anybody either online or here tonight that would be interested in participating in this. It's a lot of money. We don't think it's going to take 1.6 million to buy it, but it's not going to be for $100,000 either. So we're watching this closely. We've reached out to a number of realtors who are involved. We've talked to Chase's company is in bankruptcy. We're trying to learn more of what we can about that and how that's going to impact this. But I'll ask you if you're interested, if you have the means to participate and would like to get in touch with me either after the meeting or send me an email.
And if we did buy it, what would happen?
Thank you. We'd turn it into a preserve. I think that's the best use for it. Mindy?
Have you thought about doing like a special fundraiser with HLA members?
We have not, well, this is the start.
Okay.
This is the start and asking for that.
Mhm.
And we have had several conversations with both the Falmouth Land Trust, because the property is actually split between Wyndham and Falmouth. It's about 5 or 6 acres in Falmouth, and the rest of it is in Wyndham, 35 in Wyndham, I think. And so we talked to both towns, and again, the Presumpscot Regional Land Trust, as well as the Falmouth Land Trust, they would both love to get involved with this. There's usually grant money that's available, but most of the projects for the grant money are in the 500 acres, 600 acres, kind of like the one that Wyndham just did on around Little Duck Pond, actually, the headwaters to the water coming into Highland Lake. So at 41 acres, there's less interest in the federal grants to support those kind of projects, but we'll definitely not ignore that. So please, anyone, if you're interested, please ask. It's 41 acres, yeah. And I will tell you 2 things. If this is developed, even though it's got that many houses, the restrictions on this property from phosphorus are tremendous. And there will be, if it goes in as designed, there will be less phosphorus reaching the lake after it's done than there is right today. Because they're going to be taking a lot of the runoff that was never addressed that's coming off Route 302. So they are putting in huge settling ponds. So our understanding is they've reached out to a number of developers already since February. There's not a lot of interest because there's huge costs associated with this. In order to meet those phosphorus requirements, it's going to take a significant amount of money. So we're hoping that, if it takes us a little while to figure out if we can get funds to purchase this, hopefully the price drops. And if we get closer to bankruptcy settlement, it drops. So, we're hoping, but it'd be really nice. There could be, there's some pretty nice old roads through there that used to be in the campground. It could be some pretty interesting trails. 750 feet of waterfront. I mean, it's really a remarkable site. Yeah, and before I leave that, yeah, Kim White fortunately just sent me a text. Right now, the bylaws for the site, as they submitted them to the town, say that they can only have three pontoon boats and a couple of fishing boats. But that's the bylaws for the organization that's going to live there. They can change those bylaws a month after they move in. There could be 30 boats, there could be 40 boats. They could fill that whole bay down there with boats. So that's an important consideration. Yes, ma'am.
If something was put together with the Falmouth and or the Presumpscot Regional Land Trust, would that be required to that it would Island Lake would then be totally open to the public?
Absolutely not. If we buy it, we
In
say,
conjunction.
no, we buy it. And we contract with them. They would try to get some grants. They couldn't, they said they probably couldn't cover more than 25% of the cost. But if we buy it, we set what the rules are. Okay, as an example, the Little Duck Pond, I think it's about 600 acres that the town now has a preserve up there. It has I think it has like 1,200 feet of waterfront. There is no launch. So we can say no launch. If they wanted to put in a carry-in like they have right across the channel.
Yeah.
I have no problem. I live on the south end of the lake. I love seeing people come in on paddle boards and kayaks and stuff. I think it's great. Yes, ma'am.
That property, there is a boat launch, a cement boat launch.
Yeah, right. But if we own it, there won't be.
It doesn't mean-
We would say, no, we don't want to have one. It's tough to put in if you've ever been down there, the water is so shallow, unless you dredged, it would be hard. I know if I tried to launch my boat there, sorry about that. If I tried to launch my boat there, the front wheels on my truck would be about 30 feet from shore, trying to get the boat off the trailer. It's so shallow. So anyway, but thank you for the question.
About checking with other conservation trusts. Can you talk for a second about designs?
Sure. So I don't know if you could all hear the question, but it's, would we check with other conservation trusts to see about, could we get money and how do they evaluate these? None of them can do any funding above not assessed value, but there's so many terms going around. Appraised value, thank you. So, and it varies, and some of the land trusts have done some comps, several, others have done comps on this, and they keep coming up with prices in the somewhere around $400,000 to $600,000.
What is the town of Wyndham and the town of Falmouth?
I think it's less than that, but I don't think that's taking into account the fact that they have an approved development plan. And the other thing is, when we had challenged the stormwater permit from the last time they were doing this, and successfully, I looked at it, and I'm not a civil engineer, but I will tell you, I put 200 hours into that effort. And I thought that they could probably put in 12 houses. Then they went to the mobile home park, and under that scenario, they could put in 30. And then when that fell through, they decided that they could go to, because it's an over 55 zone, that instead of needing 60,000 square feet per dwelling, it drops to, I can't remember if it's 5 or 10, but they could put in 60. So, that's how they got there. But even if you only put in 12, or let's say 10, we asked a realtor who was part of our group, could you sell those lots for $100,000 each? With right off 302, proximity to Portland, and lake access in a heartbeat. Well, 10 of them, that's $1 million, right? So I don't think, I don't trust the valuations that are saying that you can get it for $500,000, $600,000. I don't think that's, they could do better just selling, doing it a different way. Then there was also some talk potentially about becoming developers ourselves and put 4 houses in there and just sell the land further up from the lake And I think there's a lot of people that said, you know what, I don't really want to get into development, and that gets real messy. You got to put in roads and water. It just is troublesome. That's my own view. I'm not running this. It's a group of people just kind of looking at this. So I welcome any other suggestions or thoughts or contributions that you'd be willing to do. Okay, financial update. We can go through this pretty quickly. We're under budget, as you can see, substantially, and mainly because our water quality testing bills come in late in the year. And so the $4,400 we have for that will likely be pretty close by the time we're done. I know we still have another insurance that's not due yet. So we'll still have to pay that. Some of the other things, admin costs. I know we have a post office box. We'll be paying that here in the next week. That's a couple $100. So we're going to be pretty close to budget. We've been coming in pretty close the last few years. I don't expect any difference this year. Any questions on the budget before I move on? Yes, ma'am.
Is the insurance, is that the directors and officers insurance?
It's directors and officers, liability insurance, and then boat insurance.
And through whom is that?
It's through an agency in Camden,
Okay.
and we'd price those out.
In touch with you, find out exactly what that is.
Sure. Yep. And we shopped it around to about 6 or 8 different agencies, and they were the ones that were most responsive and best pricing. Okay. We're fortunate to have a gentleman named Robert King, who is a wildlife biologist who grew up on Highland Lake. And I don't know that he lived on it, but he lived nearby, and he was here fishing all the time as a kid. And he's been studying loons since 2013. And so the photos and video that you're about to see are ones that he's taken. And I talk to him probably once a day. I'm pretty excited that we've got a chick again. I think it's pretty neat. We haven't had one for a while. So let's go through this. Okay. This chick was born on the 4th of July. How cool is that, right? And this picture is his first swim into the lake. And we don't have any eagle chicks this year. No eaglets. There's nothing in the nest. So there's a higher likelihood that this chick is going to survive. The 2016 chick made it with eaglets there. We had a 2018 chick that I didn't know about until I talked to Robert King. And we had one for 3 days in 2018. And then it disappeared. So we don't know what happened. I was down as soon as the chick hatches, within hours, they're getting them away from the nest. They're vulnerable there. I was down there just a couple of weeks ago when it was born, just shortly after the day it came up on the 5th of July. I was down because they were way down on the south end of the lake, and I wanted to go get some video myself. I went over a snapping turtle that was this long. And that's why you get out of there as fast as you can. Right. I mean, I went over it with my kayak, and I'm thinking, whoa, don't lose it here, buddy. So, and one interesting note is that tonight, it's actually going to get tagged at a BRI, Biodiversity Research Institute, is going to come in. They're going to go out and they're going to capture the parents and the chick, and they're going to get blood samples, etc. We'll eventually learn the sex of what this chick is. And they'll band all 3, and so they'll have some record of where they end up in the future. So we'll have a sex announcement sometime in the next month. Probably it takes a while to get the agenda reveal. Yes. So this was love at first bite, I call this one. And you can see the pontoon boat in the background. That's the pontoon boat at the very in the outlet. That's a quarter mile down the outlet. So that's where the nest was. So this is the first time it was being fed. And you'll see on some of the others too, in some video that I got, they were trying to feed it little crayfish and other crustaceans that were too big. And it took it took the parents a while to figure out that they needed to get smaller food for them. And you'll see in some of the video, they're crunching it to try to break it up. But I saw him try to swallow it and he was gagging. So he finally turned away. He wasn't gonna look at it. So here's our first video. And again, this is right at the beginning when he just got in the water. They tried to feed him once, and they're getting ready to escort him up the lake. He was a lot cuter then than he is now, by the way, for anyone who's seen him up close. But he's more than double, probably triple the weight now as to what he was when this was taken. It is incredible how fast they grow.
Who took this video?
I'm sorry?
Who took this video?
This is Robert King. You've probably seen him around. He's got a canoe. He's half laying down in it, big wide brim hat, camera set up, and a little trolling motor, and he keeps his distance. So here's another one of them moving their way up the channel. Watch the parents, because what you'll note as this, once it gets going, watch how they're looking right, left. They're looking underwater. They're really trying to make sure that this little guy doesn't have a big bass or a snapping turtle come pluck him out.
A big bass?
Pardon?
A big bass?
Oh yeah, big bass will do it. Yep. The bass are eating the big alewives that are 11 inches long. The bigger ones.
Who requested it be banned? Is that the state?
Pardon?
Who requested the loons to be banned?
It's not the state. It's the biodiversity research wanted to do it, and I'm sure they're working in conjunction with the state.
How did they know?
Oh, we talked with them.
The founder of this,
Yeah.
the founder of
This is right.
VRI lives on our lake.
Yeah, we also had they came and banded our eaglet last year. They climbed up into the nest.
They also are doing a restoration of loons on lakes in different states.
Yes.
Yes.
But you can see how wary the two parents are in trying to make sure that nothing comes near them.
Wow. So are these on the Highland Lake website, Facebook?
This will be, here you can see I don't know if this is the mom or dad trying to crunch this up for him. And, but I think this one's still too big. And he reached the point where he wouldn't even go near them when they had it. I don't know if he's just fussy or couldn't swallow it. Okay, I think this is a fun one. Yeah, watch, the chick is gonna kind of mimic the mother here in a minute. I don't know how much longer he's gonna be able to do that. Here's the dad, probably showing off to, we have 3 other loons on the lake besides this nesting pair and the chick. And he challenges them when they start to get too close. But so now I'm going to ask Lauren to come back up and help us pick a name for this little guy.
Oh yeah, I think the chick is super cute, very excited. So hopefully you guys are just as excited to help give our little guy a name or girl. I guess we'll find out at our gender reveal, hopefully soon. So also, what was that?
Those are mostly gender.
Yeah,
So we'll.
exactly. So it'll fit. All right, so let's start out with Loona, show of hands, as well as our folks online as well. So raise your hands nice and high so we can accurately count for Loona. So in our middle section, I see 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. I've got 9 on this side. What did you count?
7.
So we got 16. And then are we gonna see our online folks at the end, Kevin, or? Oh, okay, sorry. Okay, so we've got 16 for Loona. How about Indy? All right, so I got 1, 2, 3, 4 over here. All right, so we've got 10 for Indy. So 16 Loona, 10 Indy so far. How about Moxie?
We can do ranked choice.
So we've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 over here. 3, 2. All right, so 7 for Moxie. So 16 Loona, 10 Indy, 7. Did we say 7 Moxie?
Yeah.
Okay, Lucky. Cute. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 on this side. Is that 1? All right, so 7 for Lucky. And last but not least, we have Lupita. All right, we got 1, 2 on this side. Okay, so 2 for Lupita.
Right.
All right, so it's looking like Loona is our winner at 42%, both in person and online, or 42% online, as well as the majority of our vote in person. So that's our little friend, Loona. Loona it is. Thanks for voting, everyone.
Can I add a little note?
You
I
can.
think the mother's name is Loon.
Is Loon?
Loon was born on the lake, and he had an informal name contest, and he came up with it, so I think that's. And that's fancy, at least that's the one. If they weren't banded, it was the cracks with this point. The father's side was not. Thank you. That's good. Thank you.
So thank you all for coming tonight. That concludes our presentation, but if there are any questions that anybody has on anything that we've been up to, it's your, yes, sir.
Does the buoys that the HBA put up for like low areas?
Yes,
In the narrow, we're on Cove Road, and there's a spot that they put there's a lobster buoy that's laying across. It's a very shallow area just as we come out of a cove. And my wife ran over it with a hose, but no damage, but it's really shallow. And I don't know, is there anything that can be done that maybe someone could go up, look at it to see if one of those
sure. But
because the one on the water, it's really hard with the sun coming, off
Right.
the horizon and stuff to see it.
the way,
Someone might think it's a loon or something and have their husband move the boat around and like that.
Yeah. what we've done is, Kevin, to his credit, is the one who got this whole program running, and the Highland Lake Association gets them, makes up the lines, the anchors, and has everything ready. We maintain 6, and the rest of them, we have people around the lake, out in front to take care of it, because they got to be pulled in the fall, put in the spring, et cetera. Check if anything needs to be done, let us know. We'll get them repaired, but we need volunteers to be able to do it, because it just ends up pretty time consuming with all the places.
As criteria of where to visit, because you can imagine that same rock exists about 300 different locations. Right, it's people's access to the lake is typically marked by the state of the waterway itself. So if people are hitting it, while they're doing global boating from the lake, those are ones we not mark up, the ones from your dock to get.
But it's quite a ways up, it's in the open.
Okay.
It's in open water. Okay, thank you.
Yep. Any other questions? Well, thank you all for coming. So I appreciate it. We're gonna have a survey.